Greetings, lads and ladettes, it's Racquet, and today we're doing another episode of Core Concepts. I nearly forgot the name of my own series, that's quite a worry. But yeah, Core Concepts, this is basically when I talk about Overwatch related stuff in terms of mechanics, in terms of how the game operates and what I think about the meta, so on and so forth. Last episode was Meta Misconception, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and the feedback I will definitely be putting into the future episodes, and thank you again for all the support. But laying down the groundwork, I'm going to make it part 2 of that video, because I believe I didn't articulate myself correctly in some manners when relating to why the meta is so bad. I referenced, I think the main point that I got across in that video was that the tank meta has a sort of problem that it's very hard to counterpick. And as I stand, I still believe in what I said, but I didn't exactly give a concise description as to why these tanks are so powerful. I did a small reference and I said, League of Legends has had this problem too. The tank meta, when they had the Cinderhulk, it was very problematic, having a flat percentage amount of increased with all the tanks with that Cinderhulk buff for the junglers. And with Overwatch, the value of damage and health pool is a very complete package, and the heroes that are in the tank meta at the moment, when you have them bumbled up, you don't lose necessarily that much when you're, for example, you could have a DPS instead, but when you have that tank instead of the DPS, instead of running a 2-2-2, and when you're running that triple tank, you're not realistically losing too much, because you have Roadhog, who does a ridiculous amount of damage with that hook. You can hook someone in, and you can insta-kill them, basically. And you have D.Va, and as I've mentioned before, I have a problem with D.Va because she can block a ridiculous amount, get a lot of value off her defense matrix, and therefore she can, get close to people, basically shut her down. And when you think of how strong Soldier is in the meta at the moment, it is ridiculously broken to see that D.Va is even shutting that pick down, with how even strong Soldier is in the context of this own meta. So why is this meta so strong, and how can it be fixed? I'm just going to be going more brief this time, but I will be giving my opinions and thoughts as to how this meta can be fixed, because I think when suggesting an opinion, I think it's important for that person to state an optimal way to balance out what the wrongdoing is, and I think that's fair to say that I should be giving evidence as to why this tank meta is a problem in that regard, and see how I would personally attack it. So my first opinion, my first view, a way to fix this tank meta, I think you have to attack at the heart. You have to target D.Va. I think D.Va is the main problem because she does counter a lot of the DPS slots. Genji has always had a problem attacking tanks. D.Va is one of the main ones. You have McCree, the flashbang. You can block the high end with the defense matrix. It's very strong against McCree. And you also have Reaper, which is so-called a tank buster, as I mentioned in the previous video, but has a very bad matchup into D.Va because of the Wraith form interaction in the defense matrix. D.Va can just basically defense matrix all of Reaper's shots, and the cooldown of the defense matrix is much lower than the Wraith form, so therefore she has a bit of an advantage when he blocks all of her damage in that 1v1, because her invulnerability is much shorter of a cooldown than it is for Reaper, and that's the main problem. Now, in order to balance this, I was talking to a few peers about this before. In terms of D.Va, she is the main problem with this tank meta at the moment. I think a good way to balance out D.Va is to nerf her defense matrix. Her defense matrix is probably the most valuable aspect of her kit at the moment, and I think a simple way to make it, and I think this can seem like a small change to some people, but a nerf on the defense matrix, it has a delay every time you use it. So for example, I think the delay is about 0.5 or a second at the moment, and every time you use the defense matrix, this is my proposed change, you should have a 2-second delay before activating it again. Now, this is lower than what the toggle was, but at the same time it introduces a way to punish D.Va as well. And I've seen Reddit comments and they're like, she shouldn't be able to use her defense matrix while using her thruster, which I think is a very big nerf because it decreases a lot of her matchups and what she's supposed to be good at. But in that sort of way, if you, for example, buff her damage and to recompensate, I know that maybe that's a bad idea, but if you focus making her see D.Va at the moment, she has a very complete package, and I can understand why people would be wanting to shut down that aspect of D.Va, because at the moment she can do way too much for a hero. She's very widespread and all-rounded, and she's the jack of all trades, really. The problem is that she doesn't have a weakness. She does have, yes, good picks like Zarya. She, Roadhog can hook her in, but it's not really good because tanks counter D.Va, which is, we've gone full circle at this point. DPSs can do nothing against D.Va. I mean, that's quite a concern. Now, that's fine having a hero that can specifically counter these DPSs, and the down trade is she doesn't do as much damage to DPSs because of her pellet spread. But the thing is, she shred tanks as well. That's where the problem lies too. So maybe you decrease her pellet radius and make her better against DPSs in terms of dueling, and decrease her efficiency against tanks, or you can go the other way around and make her only good against tanks, not be able to kill any DPSs. So it's a very hard way with D.Va. You can go in multiple directions, but those are just a few of those proposed changes in my mind. Now, I also think this is a good buff as well. I think Reaper needs a buff. Now, I said this opinion to a few friends, and they agreed that it was pretty good. I also would like to thank, I think I sort of snagged off this from one of, I'll give the link in the description below, because I remember someone saying that the particular change that I'm addressing now, I remember watching it in a video, so it sort of gave me this idea. And the idea is, since Reaper has a very mind game sort of matchup against the D.Va, and D.Va most of the time wins it, what if we can allow Reaper's Wraith form, you can reactivate it in order to get out, and you decrease the cooldown based on your reactivation. I think it's a very interesting concept, because at the moment, if D.Va doesn't get touched, I think that's the best way to address the problem, because Reaper should be, in theory, a tank buster. So if that matchup can be changed in that way, then I could imagine it being quite strong. Now, the problem is that also does increase his 1v1 potential against heroes such as Genji, such as McCree, when he can at will use his Wraith form and, dodge these deflects, dodge the flashbangs much more efficiently. And I think that sort of suits his theme well, but it also damages a lot of the matchups that I think Reaper was rather evenly matched in the DPSs, because it's not like Reaper had a bad matchup against any of these DPSs in the first place, right? Sure, he didn't have the range, sure, he couldn't, take advantage of, against his soldier, but I think the buff could be very good, because at the moment, I think Soldier's a very good matchup into Reaper because of the amount of damage that he has, and he plain out just does a better job at shredding. Now, Reaper does do more damage than Soldier of close range, of course, but Soldier does it within a distance, and that's the key there. If Soldier can output all this damage at a distance, he is safe. Therefore, the counterplay is much more in favor for Reaper. Sorry, the counterplay is much easier. It's much easier to counter Reaper than it is Soldier, because Soldier would be at a longer distance, and Reaper's very in your face, so you know that he's going to be attacking that front line. It's very coordinated if you are going against a Reaper, while Soldier, he can flank, he can go in the back line, he can perhaps even go on the front line with some movement speed as well, so it's a very difficult one to target. And this brings me to my next change. Should Soldier be nerfed? I think this is a very good question, but it proposes another question on top of that. Is Soldier too strong, or are the other DPSs too weak? Now, this is the hard thing with Overwatch. DPS is the most difficult role to analyze, because the skill levels vary. The skill levels out of every single role in the game, DPS is arguably the hardest, and you can carry the hardest as well. We've seen this before when Genji was a good pick. People were begging for a Genji nerf when they were like, yep, he's so broken on like these plat games, and like, but people in higher elo were like, yeah, but he wasn't doing anything here. We just flashbang him and we do this. But the thing is, that's going to be the difficult part. That's always going to be a difficult part of when you propose a role that is so hard to master. When you have like Hanzo, when you have Genji, when you have McCree, these hard heroes, it's very hard to balance them because the efficiency between the people who are in lower elo, let's just say like gold and stuff like that, compared to Grandmaster, is ridiculous. Like, this tank meta, pretty much anyone can play tanks. They're like easy, they're brain dead. But if we go into a DPS meta, this is when it's going to be very hard to analyze because the results will be much different. You have like, it's ridiculous because it revolves around raw aim a lot of the time as well. Well, depending on which hero, of course. I mean, you can look at McCree, for example. It's so easy to see a good McCree from a bad McCree. Like, people who are in these higher elos, like Grandmaster, so on and so forth, they get headshots pretty much all the time. And if you're looking at a bronze person, they struggle to get, shots to the hip, not even headshotting, basically. So it's very different. I mean, maybe bronze is even a stretch. Like, even diamond and plat, like, you see a very big difference in terms of critical strike, so it's a very hard one to analyze. But I haven't exactly answered the question, but I'm proposing that it's a large problem. It's very hard to balance this DPS role, and I don't exactly have a good answer to it. When D.Va is nerfed, maybe the DPSs go back on the rise. Maybe DVA is that key, the key to the chest that can activate these DPSs. It's quite a possibility, because don't forget, D.Va is one of the hardest counters to McCree. Like, McCree could theoretically be a very good pick, but Soldier does a better job at shredding tanks and gets countered less than McCree does in that matchup when up against a D.Va. So it's a very hard matchup, and I already mentioned that Reaper should have that Wraith form buff. I think that will help him really much in this 1v1 scenario against D.Va and with dueling other DPSs. But in terms of other DPSs, like, I think Genji is in a relatively fine spot. If D.Va gets nerfed and the 2-2-2 meta comes, I can imagine Genji being actually quite strong. We've seen the Nanoblade compositions come out already, and it's a hard comp to go against if you do have a very good Genji player. I mean, it's definitely one of those heroes. He can solo carry. When I mean solo carry, like, he has resources put onto him, right? And he can carry with them. So Genji is a very unique sort of hero. But I don't think DPSs are the problem necessarily. It is the interaction with defense heroes, I think. Defense heroes all strive to do the same thing. They all want to accomplish zone control. What is the most viable defense hero, you ask? That's Mei. She is the best in the game at zone control because she can completely cut off a choke. Completely. You have Junkrat who can place the trap. Nope, just shoot it. Instant. Insta-kill. Dead. There goes a lot of his zone control. You have his satchel. Shoot it. Dead. There goes a lot of his zone control. You're sure you can funnel down your grenades down a point, but you have a Reinhardt shield to block that. You have, the defense matrix. The thing is with Mei, you can't block that wall. It's an object that is part of the terrain once she launches it, so you can't interact with it. You're sure you can break it after firing 7,000 bullets into it, but she efficiently does the best at zone control. Let's look at Torbjorn, for example. Torbjorn is an example of when you combine two little things together, it doesn't equivalate to one. His hero itself is weak, and its turret is weak. Now, once you have those two components together, maybe he equals to one hero. No, I honestly don't see it happening. Even with that armor buff and people saying, oh, he's very good with Symmetra, I disagree. I honestly think that comp isn't really that optimal, and once it does get shut down after the first point, it's useless. It is honestly useless. I mean, and Soldier has such easy access to destroying that Torbjorn, so I don't understand why people think that's a good composition. They're like, oh yeah, but you all get tanky with the turrets, but you're sacrificing a whole hero basically at that point, because I don't even think Torbjorn is worth a hero. I think he's not very good, but the armor sure does grant a lot of value. You can grant it to your friendlies, your allies, and you can make them a lot more tanky. But that at a sort of case is overkill. Like if you want the shield gen, just place the shield gen. You don't really need armor packs after it. It's really just overkill. So, and Torbjorn itself, like, his turret is way too easy to kill. His Molten Core does have low impact in terms of this meta at the moment. I think Molten Core could actually be pretty good when you introduce a meta with flankers. When a Genji, for example, its Molten Core is actually a really efficient tool. When Tracer comes in, it can target lock her, despite her being very mobile. It's actually quite good. But at this meta in the moment, I don't see Torbjorn doing anything. But the thing is, with the flanker, with a good matchup against flankers can also destroy his turret much easier too, because of their high amount of burst. So that introduces a problem within itself. So Torbjorn is in a very tricky spot, and I don't think he's worth investing in, even with the Symmetra at the moment. But whoever you've gone through in the defense, have gone through Mei, Junkrat, honestly, Symmetra at the moment. I think Symmetra was a fantastic idea from Blizzard. I don't think Symmetra is overpowered. People are overreacting, in my opinion. If she was overpowered, she would be picked 100% of the time. Now, sure, she is getting picked more frequently, but if we're talking about the word overpowered, now my criteria differs from a lot of people. If it's overpowered, then that would suggest that she's been picked like a lot of the time, most of the time, but Symmetra still has that sort of niche role. But in a sense, she is so good when she is picked on these certain scenarios that she's worth running. I don't think she can be played on every map. I don't think she can replace a DPS every single time, but I think Blizzard have done a fantastic job at making Symmetra viable in this sort of sense, and not making it this stupid soldier every single game. I think it's a really good change, to be honest, and the shield generator does offer a lot of utility for the teams as well. People are like, oh, is a shield going to be enough? And I think that question has been answered. And the fact that you can use the teleporter as well, you have that sort of choose one utility, sort of like a druid and Hearthstone. Like they're very, like, you can interact with it well depending on the situation, and the versatility is quite important. So that's something to note as well. So we've gone through Mei, Junkrat. We've gone through Mei, Junkrat. I think I'm missing something here. But in terms of what the defense heroes try to achieve, they all try to do zone control. Mei is the best in that scenario because she does have that wall, and as I said, it's an immovable object pretty much, and she does offer a good zone control ultimate. That freeze is really good, and that's the reason why she was played beforehand, because that ultimate does generate a lot of value, and it can be charged up quite quickly as well. When you compare it to Junkrat ultimate, it's just laughable, really. The ultimate of Junkrat is laughable. I mean, let's be honest here. But in terms of what we've seen so far, I've proposed some changes, some answers, but I don't think it's as easy as saying you should do this, this, and this. But I do think the meta does lead on. A lot of the problem at the moment is D.Va, and I think if you strike D.Va, you give a lot of the DPSs access, even perhaps new defense heroes access. I think if Pharah isn't played, Junkrat does have a niche role on certain maps, because you can't exactly, if D.Va's not quote-unquote viable, Junkrat can easily find a way to funnel down his bombs into a particular area, although I think Mei is a better alternative, and it would definitely change a few things. I mean, Sombra is certainly a hero that we need to look out for. I think she isn't exactly the best, but I do think with this shield generator, and if we see a lot more Symmetra, she can get increased value, so we'll definitely be on the lookout for that in the future. But tanks at the moment are very strong, and I think if you strike at the heart with that D.Va, then it should be a better place. In terms of people who think that Roadhog needs a nerf, I think his hook definitely needs some fixing, because the hook radius can get people from angles that I've never even investigated before. You just chuck it out and it magically gets someone that you didn't even mean to pull. I think it's quite ridiculous. But from Roadhog, I think is quite balanced besides that bug. But yeah, from my perspective, I think everything should be done, and I think it's a very difficult spot for Blizzard, because they did, as I mentioned previously in my video, they buffed Anna, and now Anna's played every single game, and I think Blizzard will probably be tentative as a result of that. But thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you for everything. As I said, the support has been great. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go down to my Twitter below. Hope you all have had a fantastic New Year's, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.